I'm Lisa Evers, and this is Street Soldiers.
Box 5 and Hot 97 present Street Soldiers with Lisa Evers.
We've shown you repeatedly the horror stories and suffering of NYCHA residents with no heat or hot water and dangerous lead and mold. But now big changes are underway. Will it be progress or just more of the same?
You wake up in the morning and your head hurts because it's cold. I sleep in this to keep the cold off my head.
Freezing. It's cold, Lisa.
An end to the discomfort and unhealthy conditions may be in sight for NYCHA residents like working mom Heidi Morales. A deal struck between Mayor de Blasio and HUD Secretary Dr. Ben Carson provides for a total NYCHA overhaul under the watchful eye of a federal monitor, says HUD Regional Director Lynn Patton.
It's not just significant, Lisa, it's historic. Never before in the history of New York has a monitor had the powers that this monitor has.
Patton says the federal monitor, who will be chosen within a month, will have the final say in everything, but will work closely with NYCHA.
We inherited a very troubled situation, but we resolved from the beginning to do something different and to find a way to cooperate in the interests of the people.
Patton, who spent many hours seeing conditions for herself, says federal oversight will ensure NYCHA makes specific improvements on a timetable and complies with federal housing laws.
They're going to create a compliance division within 45 days of their appointment to make sure that NYCHA is doing the things that HUD requires them to do.
But not everyone is convinced a federal monitor will be able to get the job done. City Council member Richie Torres, who grew up in the Throgs Neck houses, believes it's more of the same.
The federal monitor has no ability to hire or fire anyone, has no ability to restructure management in the agency. What NYCHA needs is more money and better management, not more layers of bureaucratic monitoring.
Danny Barber, a NYCHA resident who is president of the Citywide Council of Resident Association Leaders, says it's worth a try.
I believe the monitor, if they're totally independent, separate, away from NYCHA, that it can be effective and efficient to what needs to be done.
So when can we expect to see some real developments? Let's find out what our panel has to say. Joining me is Danny Barber. He's the president of the Citywide Council of Presidents. He's also a NYCHA resident himself of the Jackson houses in the Bronx. Danny, great to have you with us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. Also joining us is Lynn Patton. She is the HUD Regional Director. She's also been on the forefront of trying to bring change and improvements to NYCHA residents and hasn't been afraid at all to call the shots the way she sees them. Lynn, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Lisa. Great to be back.
We appreciate it. Also, we invited NYCHA to send a representative to be on this panel for the show, but we did not hear back from them after repeated requests, phone calls, and emails, so that's why we do not have somebody from NYCHA here with us on the panel. Lynn, I want to start with you about this because we heard about the January 31st NYCHA, the deal with HUD and the U.S. Attorney and this big agreement. What does it really mean? Is this a big development?
It's 100% historic, Lisa, and I'm actually very proud of it. Let me begin by saying what separates this from the consent decree that was filed with Judge Pauley is the fact that, one, this sets real milestones with real deadlines. It also has real accountability and real independent decision-making. Also, the fact that the Secretary declared substantial default means two things. One, it removes the arrangement from the court, which, as much as I love Judge Pauley, because the fact that he was willing to listen to the residents' plights, we all were, was more than any other judge that I've ever seen. But with all due respect, we also wasted 5 months on a decision from him that the residents don't have time for. So it removes the case from the courts, and it also puts a lot of authority, unprecedented levels of authority, in the hands of the Secretary of HUD. The Secretary of HUD, under substantial default, can actually appoint a new chair of NYCHA without even consulting anyone from the city. But that's not what the Secretary wants to do. But it also allows them to appoint a receivership or a federal monitor.
So basically this category of substantial default is an official type of
Yes.
category. It's
Yes.
not just.
It's the Housing Act of 1937. I won't bore you with the details.
But so it's
of
a
that.
legal. It's a legal status.
Yes, absolutely.
So basically, and just to clear this up, because this is one of the questions that we've been getting, and of course that I have myself personally, having covered this so extensively, is this agreement. This is it, and then it's done, and whatever, or is this like go for a certain period of time, and if the city does what they're supposed to do by certain deadlines, they get full control back, or how does it work?
Look, this agreement doesn't work without the cooperation of the city, without the cooperation of the state. That was something that was critical to me, to the secretary, to the SDNY. We need Trinity funding. The days of the federal government riding in on a big white horse with a bucket of money, those are long gone. The issues at NYCHA are paramount and far too great. This governor needs to be involved. The mayor needs to be involved. And for the first time, both of them have past HUD experience. You know, never before in the history of New York have housing experts been in the position of authority and power. Now more than ever, we should be moving NYCHA forward.
And moving forward, and let's talk about that. Danny, when you heard about the agreement between NYCHA and HUD and the Southern District, the U.S. Attorney, what was your reaction to that?
Why weren't the residents at the table when they were making the agreement?
And I appreciate that, and Danny knows that, you know, we've had several meetings during the course, and that's a great question. And I told Danny when we were together the other day that one of the things I will personally make sure that the monitor forms is a tenant advisory committee. The monitor will be able to hire a housing expert, a regional expert, an environmental expert, a construction expert. They also need to form a tenant advisory committee. And within 45 days of the monitor's appointment, they have to create a quality assurance department, they have to create an environmental health department, and they have to create a compliance department.
All right, now one of the things I'm confused about is this happened on January 31st, and then now the mayor has named a new interim CEO for NYCHA in the form of the Sanitation Commissioner, Catherine Garcia. So who's actually going to be, I thought HUD was going to be making those decisions too. Did this just happen?
Well, look, I'll be honest with you. I have heard decent things about Catherine Garcia from folks at HUD who work for me, and I take their opinion with a grain of salt. Let's just say I hope she does a better job at NYCHA than she did, obviously, last November when it took me 8 hours to get out of the city because the streets weren't plowed. You know, the mayor did this before with when he announced a compliance director shortly after the consent decree. And, you know, it's my understanding he did mention it to headquarters, but I don't understand the posturing. It's something that we've all just agreed to work together on. You would think that that can wait until the monitor's appointed, and then we can move forward. But I do know that the U.S. Attorney was very, very adamant about the interim NYCHA chair being replaced as soon as possible.
Oh, okay. So that was done also with the with the U.S. Attorney's input as well.
And Stanley Bresnoff and I had a monthly breakfast. We got along, but you know, and quite frankly, he never wanted the job. He was very clear about that.
Right. He did it as more like city service.
And I appreciated that because one of the first things Stanley said to me was, I don't want this job. I'm 80-something years old. I have enough friends. I'm not trying to cater to the mayor. I'm not trying to cater to
and
you,
he did a lot of work for the city. He did a lot for the city, too, through his career. All right, this is Street Soldiers. I'm your host, Lisa Evers. We'll be right back.
I'm going to say something that might get me in trouble.
Is very brave.
The evolution of cancer care is here. Learn more at cancercenter.com. Appointments available now.
We saw the very cold day on the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. holiday. We were out. We saw Vito Mustachulo, the general manager of NYCHA. We caught up with him as he was checking on boilers in the Sotomayor houses in the South Bronx, and they seem to have been making an effort. We're getting heat on. We only had a limited number of outages, but then come to find out, we found out from one of the working mothers that we interviewed, Heidi Morales, her entire development has not had heat for over 10 years. Residents have had to make do with what they can with private heat, you know, with portable heaters, the stoves, and that type of stuff. So Lynn, how do you even begin to get an idea of what you all are really dealing with?
It's heartbreaking. And I'll be honest with you, Lisa, I don't know. And that's really hard for me to say because, you know, when you're dealing with basic human rights and human conditions such as heat and hot water, and, you know, again, I have nothing against the mayor. I actually think, you know, he had my job. I know he cares about housing, but, you know, we need to stop bragging about turning heat and hot water back on faster than before, because it shouldn't be going out in the first place. And until that stops, I will always be a thorn in the side. You know, and I even said that to the secretary. You know, I was like, with all due respect, I appreciate your position and we need to get along to make this work, but you know, we need to all get off our soapboxes and actually fix the problem. You know, I actually like Vito Massacello. I think he's doing a great job. I actually fought to make sure that he remained on board at NYCHA because I think a lot of folks just wanted to wipe the slate clean and throw the baby out with the bathwater.
He seems to have a hands-on approach.
He does, and he's made himself extremely available to me. I text him at all hours of the night based on my Twitter feed and folks that are saying I have no heat. Immediately responds, immediately says that they're on it, that they're sending somebody there. Heidi's situation is so egregious, I don't even know how to begin other than say, you know, I will be leaving here and making sure that somebody is at her building trying to look into what's going on there. You know, it has to end now. Look, I'm going to say something that might get me in trouble.
Oh, go ahead, it's Street Soldiers.
And by the way, I don't know when I don't say things that get me in trouble. But, you know, there are tax-paying, law-abiding citizens without heat or hot water. And I'm just going to leave it right there. I know everybody's attention this past week has been somewhere else, but we need to bring it back to NYCHA. And we need to make sure that rent-paying residents. It's not like folks are living in NYCHA for free.
Right.
Rent-paying residents.
They pay a third of the $3 billion a year budget.
I know
Is that right? The $3 billion a year budget?
Listen, we pay a lot of money. There's people living in NYCHA that's paying $1,300, $1,400.
Thank you.
Hello. $1,300.
So Lynn, just to be clear, we're talking
that's
about
no small amount of money.
No, that's
and you
not.
deserve a consistent heat and hot water.
And the service is very slow.
What you're referring to, just to be clear, because I had a lot of similar comments on my Instagram and Twitter, was the situation at MDC, the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn, which has had persistent heat problems, but really bad over the last 2 weeks, as we found out in federal court this week. So the Con Ed showed up on a Sunday, and they got the heat back on, even though they had problems like that. So you're saying, do you feel there's not enough outrage over what these working, rent-paying families are going through?
Make no mistake, nobody should be suffering in the cold. Nobody should be without hot water. This is the United States of America. You know, the migrant caravan, I tweeted a couple weeks ago, you know, you can come and claim asylum and you're fleeing your destitute conditions, but don't come to New York because the conditions are almost the same here as the ones that you're fleeing.
Yeah.
There's no running water, there's no heat, you know, and it's unacceptable. So, of course, prisoners don't deserve to be in inhumane conditions, but again, you have law-abiding, tax-paying American citizens who are here in New York who have been going through this not just for one weekend, but for 5 years, 10 years, just like you just said. And it's unacceptable. Where are all the protesters out in front of NYCHA banging on the windows and saying, where is the heat and hot water?
All right, this is Street Soldiers. I'm your host, Lisa Evers. We'll be back right after this. Now, we've seen, especially in the last couple of months, The mayor, the city of New York, NYCHA, they have rolled out new initiatives to try to deal with residents' complaints. We've seen these rapid response teams for maintenance, doing maintenance repairs on Saturdays when more people, because a lot of NYCHA residents are working, contrary to some of the negative stereotypes that still persist out there. That's when they're home and they can get into their apartments. They've had these this NYCHA 2.0 plan that he's talking about. What do you all think about these, Danny? Let me start with you. The rapid response.
The rapid response teams. I think that's a great idea, because it allows those residents that you miss Monday through Friday to deal with the issues on Saturday. And they even not just do repairs, they also open up the management office where you can do recertification and deal with the issues that plague you living in public housing.
And did they come to Jackson houses where you live?
Yes, they came to Andrew Jackson houses. They actually opened up the office, and I even utilized the services a little bit for that Saturday morning to get some.
So you
things
saw a little something fixed, or
Yeah.
you saw some things
I mean,
handled.
Lisa, you're getting a little bit of change. Rome wasn't built in a day, and as we've been saying this
But
whole
progress,
show,
not
but progress
not standing
forward.
still and moving backwards.
No moving
All
backwards.
right, and I want to remind everybody too. We did invite NYCHA to send a representative to be on our panel today, but they were unable to do so, and we didn't hear back from them after our multiple requests were made. So we just want to point out, though, that there have been some progress made and some really good things going on. Lynn, what do you think about these maintenance teams?
Look, I love the idea of maintenance SWAT teams, and quite frankly, I welcome anything that the city wants to do. The city presented a plan that kind of centered around the RAD, Rental Assistance Demonstration Program, that HUD created back in 2011. Ocean Bay has been a beneficiary of that. And to me, that's not a plan. You know, we should be ratifying units anyway. You know, that to me is just really doing our job. We need to take it a step further. So the maintenance SWAT teams, the lead, compliance offices, all of these things are great, but we need to take it a step further, and a federal monitor is going to make sure that we do that.
So rapid response, you've been a lot. In
Love
fact,
it.
when you were first here in the summer in the Brownsville houses, you went right into the woman's apartment, saw the holes, saw all these things. You've been in many apartments.
And I'll be moving in on Monday.
To Patterson houses.
Patterson houses.
All right.
Yes.
So we've done a lot of work. I've been in Patterson houses.
Yeah.
That's
a
your
lot
second
too.
home, Lisa.
That's my second home. Well, shout out to everyone on 143rd there. The what kinds of things will you be looking for once you're actually, you're there all the time?
Well, first of all, I'll be listening to the residents that I'm living with. I'll be listening to the plights that they've had to endure. I'll be touring the property, visiting the boiler rooms. I'll also be holding at every location a Wednesday town hall with the residents. I'm inviting elected local officials. Obviously, Danny will get invited to that. The tenant presidents will be invited to that. I want to hear it all.
Will street soldiers be invited to that?
Street soldiers will be invited.
All right.
On Thursday, I'll be sitting with the maintenance teams on each property and asking them, what can I do to make your lives easier? What are you missing, like right now, to help these residents? This is not an ambush on NYCHA. I want to work with them and give them information that's helpful. Also relay this information to the federal monitor. Let them know, look, the maintenance teams on these individual properties don't have the tools, don't have the staffers, don't have the resources available to them on the ground to make immediate repairs, or they have to wait for a machine to come from central, so that instead, maybe we need to keep that sort of thing on site instead of centralizing it all like they did a couple of years ago to save money.
I want to thank the guests who are here with us, holding us down. Danny Barber, the president of the Citywide Council of Presidents of NYCHA Developments, and also a NYCHA resident himself of the Jackson houses. Danny, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
We appreciate it. Also with us is Lynn Patton, the HUD Regional Director. Lynn, thank you so much for taking time. I know you got a lot of things on the schedule, but we really appreciate you helping us just understand this, because all this stuff is, you know, this is pretty complicated.
It's my pleasure, Lisa, because it's important to me that the residents get the truth and not, you know, the tweets and the you know, partisan hype. And I want to thank you, Lisa, for always being at the forefront of NYCHA and the issues that Danny and the residents are undergoing every day, because without folks like you, you know, the investigation and the monitor and things would not have happened.
Well, thank you very much. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much. And thank you for joining us for this episode of Street Soldiers. Remember, use your mind. It's your best weapon. I hope it's your only weapon. I'm Lisa Evers. Let's push for peace.